Welcome back, everyone, to another podcast episode. I am Admiral Storm, and this is Podcast Friday. I am joined by Mystic and Alpal. Today's episode is all about the Legends of Zelda, which I know very little about other than The Legend of Zelda consists of 15 games, I'm sure not including the standalone or spin offs. And the first came out in 1986. It had an animated series in 89 and manga, whatever, adaptations since 97 officially endorsed by Nintendo. How are you guys today?
I'm doing pretty good.
I'm doing pretty good too.
Today is mostly a casual conversation about some Zelda games. And I guess I could start. The only Zelda games I've ever played were Skyward Sword, which I know a lot of people hate for some reason, and Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword being the very first game I played. For Twilight Princess, I did like the enemy, the antagonist Ganondorf, and I did like Midna and the fact that Link turns into a wolf, has the ability to turn into a wolf, and they use this like these leaves or whatever to sing. And Zelda has a lot of puzzle solving, or in some aspects, and I do like that too. And I like that it was in ground on the ground, where Skyward Sword was a floating island, and Twilight Princess you had Zelda, which was not an original character that Link was friends with, but in Skyward Sword, you're like in this academy, I think, if I remember correctly. It's been many years since I've played either, but Skyward Sword is my favorite because of the art style and the gameplay of it, the action and puzzle solving. And I did like the fact that the sword, Master Sword, was right there, and you get it very early on. And I love all the weapons you use, like the grappling hook. And I can't remember if there's a bow in that one. I could be wrong. But what about you guys? What was your first Zelda game that you played?
My
Okay.
first Zelda game was actually A Link to the Past, which was on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. I don't think I ever beat it, but that was my very first Zelda game.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if my first one that I played was Twilight Princess or if it was Spirit Tracks, which was on the DS. But it was one of those two. But the one that I've played the most is Breath of the Wild, so that's the one that I know the best.
Right. I've heard a lot of acclaim for that game. Doesn't it have DLC too?
Yes, it does. And I remembered just today, actually, that I never actually finished the DLC. There's because it comes in 3 parts, and I got through the first 2 parts, and I started the 3rd part, but I didn't finish it.
That's kind of like Skyrim. Skyrim has 3 DLCs, or I guess 3 parts of new stories, or 3 additional stories. And I did hear about 2 games that I want to play, Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, and I can't remember which one was the difficult one that I've heard about. I'm pretty sure it was one of those.
Majora's Mask is known to be very difficult, but Ocarina of Time is arguably the best game. And I think Majora's Mask is a sequel to Ocarina of Time.
Which one is the one with the giant moon with a face?
Yeah, that's Majora's Mask.
Majora's, yeah.
And those are the 2 that I hope to play, that I hope to buy soon in the future. I'm not so sure about 2D versions. There was one that looks like Paper Mario. It's flat. You can go on the walls and stuff. A Link Between Worlds, maybe?
Yeah, that's A Link Between Worlds.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And
that kind of art style puts me off.
Yeah, that's how a lot of the old games look like. Like, I know A Link Between Worlds is kind of a sequel to A Link to the Past, and a lot of the old games kind of have that old Mario-looking art. And personally, I think the older games are harder than any of the newer games, but it's just because you don't have as many items in most of them.
Right.
Usually, if you die, you have to start back at the very beginning. Like, just recently, I found the original Zelda game for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and that game is hard. And I'm not bad at video games. It's just every time you die, you go back to the beginning, and it's just oof.
Yeah, old games are hard.
Yeah, but they are fun. They are good to have, especially for those avid collectors.
Oh no,
Well, I mean,
definitely.
now technically, if you pay for Nintendo Switch Online, the NES and SNES games, you don't even have to have like the physical copies for.
Right. Although I do think they sell them at GameStop for cheap, the classic systems.
Uh, that depends on what you mean by cheap and what you mean by classic systems, actually.
I gotta look this up. I'm pretty sure I saw them for fairly cheap, classic gaming systems.
I think some of them are, but because I know you can buy like the like old Pokemon games and those, and they're pretty cheap. I think, but I think that's for the 3DS. I'm
I
not
think
sure
I
though.
did see a Genesis that was cheap. I don't know where.
A lot of companies are making like remake consoles and stuff. Like even Nintendo, they
Oh, it
put
must have
out.
been one of those.
Yeah,
It might
well,
have been a
here's the thing.
remake.
They
It's one of the I remember now. It's one of those that say they have hundreds of games added on or whatever.
Yeah, so that's like a remake console, and
Ah,
well, see, even Nintendo, like they came out with remake consoles for the NES and SNES, but I don't think they were that. I mean, I think they were cheap compared to like if you go out and like want to buy a Switch or a PS4, you're dropping somewhere between $200 and $300. They were
Yikes.
cheap compared to that, but I think they were still like $100 each or something.
right.
I mean, yeah, finding old games is kind of difficult. Like, I'm lucky enough that I have a lot of the really old Zelda games. Like, I have the original Link's Awakening, I have the original Zelda game, I have Link to the Past. But they're very difficult. But I'm so glad I have them. I'm hoping one day I can actually finish some of them. But still a good bargain.
It's definitely a good investment. Plus, when you have kids of your own, you could eventually let them play, see what our version of old games were.
I just hope my NES survives that long.
Yeah,
I mean, as long as you take care of it, it should be okay.
Well, the one I have, we actually found at a yard sale for really cheap, and it had a bunch of games in it, so
now that
I don't
is
know how good
lucky.
it is.
Oh yeah, that makes me think of one time we went and we found like a Game Boy Color with some games and accessories and stuff, and like the whole thing was like $50. I'm like, well, we're taking this home.
Jesus, you guys are just getting lucky. I need to go to more thrift stores and yard sales,
I mean, it does
estate
not
sales.
happen often because usually a lot of people will actually know what they have, but every once in a while you stumble upon somebody that they really don't know what they have, and that's how you get it for a good deal.
Right. What about the lore? Do you guys know anything about the lore of Legends of Zelda? All I
Um,
know is that Link is the main protagonist for every game. He's the main character. And of course, Zelda, he was Princess of Hyrule, the world. And I don't think any of the games are sequel, well, except for Majora's Mask and Ocarina, are sequels or continuing stories.
mm,
Well, actually, quite a few games are kind of sequels or continuing stories. Like I know, I think the Phantom Hourglass is a sequel to Wind Waker. Majora's Mask is a sequel to Ocarina of Time.
The
There-
first
there are-
two games are direct sequels. Like the very first two that came out. That I can't remember the names off the top of my head.
There's Legend of Zelda and the Adventures of Link or something like that.
Yeah, like those two are directly related. And the thing is, the lore gets complicated real fast when you start taking into account the official timeline that was released.
Oh boy.
That's when things get complicated.
I was looking at a timeline earlier. I don't know if it was official or not. I just
It
looked it up
probably
on
was.
Google Images.
If it has... Okay, so what happens in the timeline is you have a few games that take place in sort of a regular, like, linear order. Then you get to Ocarina of Time, and they split into 3 timelines. You have the Downfall timeline, the timeline where Link is a child, and the timeline where Link is an adult. And that's, like I said, that's where it gets complicated.
Oh my.
But I think even despite the timeline, I think the games do a very good job at taking, kind of the simple setup that Legend of Zelda is, with the main protagonist, main antagonist in Zelda, and they managed to do a very good job making every game very unique, considering, kind of the baseline story is the same for all of them.
Yeah, which that's the thing about Skyward Sword is actually the beginning of the timeline, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah,
and that's where you see the beginning of the whole, like, the cyclical themes that they built into the game so that they end up telling the same story a lot, where you have Zelda's in trouble, Ganondorf is messing everything up, and Link has to be the hero. So I forgot where I was going with that point mid-sentence, excuse me.
I think just going back to, the story's basically the same for pretty much all the games, but each game is still very different. Every game feels like it's its own adventure, even though you're kind of playing the same game over and over and over. I mean, they do have a lot of differences between them, but overall, it's kind of... the main storyline's the same, but all the side stuff is what makes the story, like, really great and interesting in each and every game.
Right.
Like
Every game adds something new or something different.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and especially if you look at like the 3D home console games, and if you look at them, they're all, like, really hugely different from each other, in style and stuff, and they change a lot up. And also, those games have, like, usually 5 years between them in development. Like, it takes a really long time for those games to come out because they usually build everything from the ground up.
Which is probably why it took so long for Breath of the Wild to come out.
Oh yeah, oh yes. If you ever play the game, you will see from the moment you start it up why it took so long. Aside from the last like half a year was tacked on so it could launch with the Switch, but beyond that, you will see every minute of development time when you boot up the game.
Yeah, I just started playing Breath of the Wild last night, and I can already tell how much work has been put into it. And I'm not very far at all, but it's still pretty amazing.
Lord only knows how long it will take before the next Legend of Zelda game comes out.
Actually, it's coming. We know it's coming. We've gotten a trailer. There is going to be a Breath of the Wild 2. It's using the same style and assets and stuff, and it looks like it's going to be dark and epic, kind of like how you had Ocarina of Time and then you had Majora's Mask. It looks like that's the type of setup we're getting here. We don't know when it's coming. We weren't given a date, but that was E3 2019. I think I'd have to go back and check, but and there's actually a lot of speculation right now that we could be getting it this holiday because we currently have no other real options for what Nintendo's going to do for a holiday
That's
title.
true.
Unless they come out with something that they have been working on that they haven't mentioned.
Which is kind of unlikely.
Yeah. The only thing is that when we got the trailer, like I said, we weren't given a date. They just said in development, and that it could be this Christmas. It could be 3 Christmases from now. And Lord, please let it not be that.
I mean, it'll give me enough time to play the game.
I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it's just that, like I said, even though I didn't finish the 3rd part of the DLC, I'm done with the main game, and I want more to do because I could restart the game, but at the same time, I also don't want to lose like all the progress that I made and everything, and have to start all over with the same game. I'm ready for the next thing, really.
Yeah, and that's completely understandable. And I don't know if you guys are like this with games, but I don't normally go back and play games again once I beat them because you don't normally get that same joyous feeling when you first play a game, you know?
Yeah,
It depends on the game for me.
I'm usually not very big on that. Mostly because, like I said, my thing is I don't want to lose all my progress, especially if it's a game where you don't have the option of multiple save files. Like, I really want to replay Pokemon Platinum, but I will never, ever erase my original save file that I have. I will never be able to do that. I just can't.
You
Yeah,
could
that's
try
how
a
I am.
Nuzlocke.
Oh no.
I've
No.
tried Nuzlocks. They always last approximately 2 minutes with me.
I feel that on an emotional level.
I can nickname my Pokemon. I cannot adhere to the rule that once they faint, they're dead and you can't use them anymore. I can't do that, mostly because I'm bad at video games. I would be losing Pokemon left and right.
I just get too emotionally attached to characters to let them
Yeah,
That
act
too.
like that.
I do that with a lot of games, especially story-driven, story-oriented games. But games like where I have choices, I can make different choices, like butterfly effect type games. Those I like to go back and play, make different choices, get different endings and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and those are built to have replay value anyway, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's not like Zelda, because, most Zelda games, once you play it the first time, like, if you play it back again, it's just usually not as great as the first time you play it, or at least that's how I see it. Like, even my favorite Zelda game, which is Wind Waker, every time I go back and try to replay it, it's still fun, I still love it, but it didn't give me that same feeling that it did when I first played it and I first beat it.
The feeling of accomplishment and sweet relief.
Yeah.
Also,
But,
when you start up a new game for the first time, there's always that sense of wonder, kind of like, oh, what is this thing gonna do? What's that thing gonna do? What am I going to find in here? And you can never have that experience of playing a game for the first time again once you've played it. You just can't. You can't get that back.
Right.
But I do think that Zelda does a really good job with every game when you pick it up. It's just so... I know I mentioned this earlier, but it's so different. Because, every time I play a new Zelda game, it's always that wonder of, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what's going to be different, because they all bring something new to the table. And I love Zelda games so much. I think they're all unique and wonderful. And even, talking about Twilight Princess versus Wind Waker, Twilight Princess has the, fact that Link can turn into a wolf, which is very unique and largely different than any other game. And then you look at Wind Waker, and you literally have to sail over the whole ocean. No other Zelda games have those two things, and it's just amazing how they come up with these things, and all of them are pretty great.
Right. I do hope to at least try to get as many of the games as possible. I have a 2DS XL, which can play both regular DS and 3DS games, so I do hope to at least get all of those compatible games.
Yeah, a lot of the games are for the DS or the 3DS. I know Link Between Worlds is the 3DS. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Masks are on the 3DS, I believe.
Yes, they ported them over, and I think actually a few of the NES and SNES games you can get on the eShop, like they just did a remake of Link's Awakening for the Switch, but you can still get like the original Link's Awakening on the 3DS eShop.
Yeah, I think so. I know I have the original. I don't have the remake as of now, but
I don't even know if I
definitely
have an
get
eShop on mine. Let me grab it for a minute.
You do. Like it's like pre-installed. Like that's the shop system on the thing, the system, if I could speak.
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah, so that opens you up to like some of the like whatever ones they put on the eShop of the originals, you can get those.
What got you guys into Legends of Zelda? How did you first find out about it?
My brother.
My brother. Oh my goodness.
No, really, like when I was a lot younger, I think like 7, I would go sit in my brother's room sometimes and just watch him play Twilight Princess. Like I have vivid memories of sitting there with a princess coloring book and watching him in like this desert area where there were these
Oh yeah.
skeleton mummy type
I hate that
things.
part.
Yeah. Well, see, okay, I wasn't playing it, so I just thought it was cool to look at, especially because I just have a thing for mummies in Egypt in the first place. So that was just, I think that's why I remember it so vividly.
Yeah, no, I had a very similar experience growing up. Like, growing up, I had an older brother too, and I never remember a part of my life that I didn't know that Link was a person. Because even before I played Zelda games, we had the original Super Smash Brothers that he was in. So I cannot remember a time in my life that I didn't know Legend of Zelda. And I used to watch my brother play, and as soon as I was frankly smart enough to play it, I was playing it.
I will admit, at first, when I first got into Legends of Zelda, I thought that Link was Zelda because he's the main character, and at first
Common
I
mistake.
also thought that Link was a girl.
Yeah, I feel like that happens a lot.
Yeah, that's not too uncommon of a thing to kind of happen.
But now in Breath. Oh, never mind. Spoilers.
Oof.
I'll refrain from that.
Yeah, it's very hard.
I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to spoil anything important.
Yeah, it's very hard trying to do this and not spoil anything because I really want to go more in depth about talking about Wind Waker, but
I don't mind any spoilers.
Well, see,
As
I
a
don't
personally.
spoil anything for Owl Pal since she just started Breath of the Wild. That's my
Right.
big thing right there.
Plus, I don't know what else to talk about because I know very little about the world.
Well, if you guys don't mind, I'm wanting to give a kind of brief overview about Wind Waker and why I think it is the best Zelda game.
Please do.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with that because by the time if I end up playing any of the games that I haven't played yet, I will probably forget.
My
By the time
memory
that happens.
is terrible too.
Well, so the thing about Wind Waker is I mentioned earlier, you know, you're kind of thrown into this world where there's just so much ocean, there's so much exploring. And I think Wind Waker does a really good job with that because, Link knows how to, use the wind. So there's a lot of exploring in that game, more than I feel like there is in like Skyward Sword or Twilight Princess, because
Right.
you kind of just are given a map and it's like go explore.
That
And
is fun.
it really is. And there's
So it was
pirates
more
in
like
it.
more open world rather than go here, go there.
Well, not quite. It's still very strict and like the storyline, but there's just a lot of room to explore, to go to different islands and kind of figure them out. One thing that I will spoil that's really wonderful about Wind Waker is that there's no real water temple. And if you know anything about Zelda games, water temples are the worst.
I don't remember there being a water temple for Skyward Sword.
I'm not sure if there was. I know there was in Twilight Princess, and that one made me
Yeah.
cry on multiple occasions. But and even you know how in every game Link kind of has a helper.
Yes.
The helper
Navi.
in Wind Waker, it's King of Red Lions. He's the boats, and he is probably my favorite out of all of them. And it's a wonderful game. The soundtrack's amazing. The ending's beautiful. I really like what they did with Zelda in that game. I'm not going to spoil it, but she plays an amazing role, and it is just a wonderful game. And if you get the opportunity to play it, you should.
See, that's how I feel about Breath of the Wild. Right there, pretty much.
Yeah, and that game's a lot different than all the other ones because it is open world. Like, I've just started the game and I'm gonna go fight Ganon. Like, the
Good
next
luck
chance
with
I
that.
get. No, it's gonna be great. I have a tree branch, so I think I'm really well prepared.
Yeah, I mean, my brother said the same thing when he got the game. He was like, "I can do whatever. Time to go fight Ganon." And I'm like, I can't. I mean, I understand like people like they have the option. They just want to do it just to see. But I did not have that urge when I started up. I'm like, nope. I'm avoiding Ganon as long as humanly possible until I've done most of the rest of what the game wants you to do, because it is very open world, but it does give you sort of like guideposts, like, oh, maybe you should think about doing this, or it nudges you in the direction of something a little more concrete, but it does not force you to do that.
Right. If I do replay Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword in the future, it will be just to see how fast I can beat the bosses.
Yeah, and one
Like,
thing about Twilight Princess, because Twilight Princess first games because available is about how Majora's Mask is kind of a darker game and Breath of the Wild was too. I think Twilight Princess, considering all the other games, had very dark undertones to it.
oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
And that kind of goes back to how Zelda can really morph anything into a good game. Because even like the scenery in most of the game is very dark, it's kind of gloomy, even like in the light areas. It's just there's just always this dark undertone to everything, but I think they did a really good job with it and making it work, not feel too forced.
Yeah, I think that's always like the Zelda team. I think they do really well when they're particularly focusing on incorporating darker elements into. I mean, not that they don't do a good job otherwise. I'm just saying I think they really shine when that's the sort of thing they're focusing more on, because if you look into like the plot of Twilight Princess and just focus on the story there, it gets really dark really fast.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's why it's super unique. And I also remember growing up, a lot of people didn't like it just because it didn't really feel like a Zelda game. And I can kind of tell with how dark it is, because when you look at other games like Skyward Sword or Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker, they don't have such a heavy, feeling to it like Twilight Princess does.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't always want something super heavy to play. Sometimes you want just simple fun. But like if you want something a little bit heavier and you want something that wants to tell you more of a story, Zelda isn't like the like a franchise that focuses a whole lot on story, but the little bit they really well done. Even when they're doing something weird like Spirit Tracks, like I don't even have that much experience with other Zelda games, but I can tell you Spirit Tracks is weird.
I mean, yeah. But I mean, Twilight Princess is not. It's not anywhere near my favorite Zelda game. I enjoyed it very much because Midna's one of my favorite characters. I really like how they did her. Kind of just this kind of sassy imp who's just, trying to get what she needs done. And I think she really adds a lot to the story. Because in other Zelda games, the kind of guidance people aren't really, to me, they don't really stand out. But like, Midna and King of Red Lions from Wind Waker, I think they do a really good job of adding something to the story, which I think is extremely important.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that. And Midna, if you ever like just look on the internet and see what the fandom says, like Midna is definitely a standout character for sure in that department.
Right.
Because they've never done something quite like her before.
Yeah.
Because all the other helpers have been kind of, brighter characters. And then you get Midna, who's just... she almost, at some points, feels like she's just trying to use Link for what she wants, which you don't normally see. You usually see someone, guiding Link. And, I mean, she guides him, but she also, she needs to get what she needs done. And I think they do a really good job of balancing that with her.
Yeah, that's the other thing, though, about Breath of the Wild is you don't really have... I'm not going to really consider this a spoiler because you kind of figured this out early on. You don't really have a partner type person per se like that.
I mean, the old man seems to be there a lot.
I mean, he is in the beginning, but like he's not Navi, if that makes sense. He's like there really isn't a character that's just like there with you all the time, kind of holding your hand, nudging you in the direction you need to go in. Even like the further you go in the game, like you never really get that, and that's probably one thing that I like about it is there's not somebody like constantly in your ear like, hey, do this, do that, do thing. You really are just kind of left to explore the world at your own pace and do kind of whatever.
I think that brings a question up of like, how much do we really need those types of characters? Like, overall, do they really bring something to the story that if we didn't have them, it just wouldn't be the same?
Right.
I haven't played much of Breath of the Wild to really feel that. But like I said, other games, I don't really feel like having... Overall, I feel like they don't bring so much to the game. So I don't know especially what you think, Mystic, about, if future Zelda games should have a guiding character, or if you think it's better off without.
I think it would be fine without it.
Yeah, I have to say, after not really having that experience in Breath of the Wild, like at the very least, the Breath of the Wild 2 does not need one, that's for sure. If they wanted to at some point like break open the formula and kind of revamp the world again, or even with like a simpler more 2D style game instead of a big like 3D game, I could maybe see them bringing a guiding character back for that. But personally, I'm not super into the idea, just because I'm one of those people. I don't like games that just throw me to the wind and give me absolutely nothing to go off of for how to figure out what I'm doing. But at the same time, I also don't like super duper hand-holdy games. I do like figuring out stuff on my own to an extent. So I think Breath of the Wild in particular strikes a good balance there.
I definitely understand that. I don't know. I'm a little biased just because I love the way that Twilight Princess and Wind Waker did kind of the guiding characters in them. I don't think because others like what's that one's name, Nabi or something. Like, I think that one is a little too much of hand holding, but I don't think Midna's really, you know.
I guess you could say they gave these two characters more depth or more story, more of a background.
Yeah, like when you do that, then like it's kind of like if you can do a character like that right, then yeah, by all means, let's have it. But if you do it wrong and the character ends up just being annoying or like they don't really add anything to the experience, that's where it's like, okay, this was really unnecessary.
And I think that's one of the downfall of a lot of Zelda games is that, a lot of the characters are kind of annoying. And that's why I like to single out Midna and King of Red Lions because I don't want to spoil anything for their games, but they have so much backstory and they actually, they're important to their plot. Like other ones, it's like they don't feel as important. And I think maybe if Zelda was going to keep on with having a character to guide them, they really do need to add more depth in their character and not just make them, just kind of annoying,
Yeah.
Which I get can be kind of hard to add them into such a complicated story, but I mean, they've obviously done it twice, and if you guys play Wind Waker, you'll see exactly what I mean with how much he adds to that story. But I think, especially when I started Breath of the Wild, it's a bit weird not having anyone to like really be there. I'm not saying that's bad, it's just kind of strange,
Yeah, like that really is the thing about Breath of the Wild is that it's so different from most of the other games in terms of how the game is presented, even though once you get into like the meat of it, you start seeing the similarities the further you go.
Yeah, that's understandable. I would like, if they do like sort of companion things, at least a co-op thing or more. What was Link's race called?
Hyrulean?
Hyrulean.
Hyrulean. How do you say Hyrulean companion? More like him, not like a boat or a creature that lives inside your sword, like in Skyward Sword, or a floating ball with wings fairy that says, "Hey, listen."
And then says, "Hey, yeah," and then says, "Hey, listen," about 50 more times, and you're like, "Navi, would you be quiet already?"
I'm trying to enjoy the game.
I would like a more human-like character like that. That would
I
be
will
fun.
say that is the thing that was a little weird to me is I was kind of surprised actually that they did not have some sort of multiplayer option like that for Breath of the Wild.
They certainly had the capability. They
Yeah,
had to
like
have.
it was just a little weird to me because I'm like, of all the games, like this is a big open one. Where multiplayer, it would probably be a lot of fun actually to try and tackle this game with two people.
Right.
I think maybe that's something that could easily be in a sequel.
Yeah, actually, I'm not gonna consider this a spoiler because, like, you can just watch the trailer and see this. In the trailer, we see Link and Zelda traveling together, and I'm kind of wondering if that might be a setup right there of some kind. For
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think it's hard to say really because she could be in the game proper with Link most of the time, but at the same time, that's such a weird thing for Zelda to do. I'm not really sure what the likelihood of that would be. But I do think it would be cool to see you could do like a co-op thing where one of you plays as Link, the other one plays as Zelda. But again, I don't know like what the likelihood of that would be.
Yeah, I can't really speak too much on Breath of the Wild's behalf, but in most Zelda games that I've played, Zelda's not very. What's the word?
Present?
Important.
Present. Well, she's always important, but she's not very present, and most of the time not very threatening. Like some games she is like. If you guys play Wind Waker, you'll see what I'm talking about. She's amazing in that game, but in other games, she just doesn't feel like I know she does stuff, but I don't think she's at the level Link is in most games.
Right.
So I think, and like I said, I can't speak on Breath of the Wild's behalf because
Did they even have a Princess Zelda in the first two games ever?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's always been Legend of Zelda because Zelda's always been there. It's always been Zelda, Link, and Ganondorf, the parts of the Triforce.
It's just usually like I think in the earlier games in particular, you usually just have to like go save Zelda, and she's really not super present.
So I think it would be interesting on Breath of the Wild's part to have her more present. Like I said, I really haven't played it. I don't know how she is in that game. But if she's anything like she is in other games, I don't really see that working. I feel like Link's still going to be doing most of the work.
I just finished watching the trailer for Breath of the Wild 2. It gives me strong Skyward Sword vibes because of a particular area in the game where you fight the first boss, which is like this giant dinosaur looking beast that comes out of the ground. And it reminds me of that area in the game.
Wait, what? Wait, back up a sec. So you said you just watched the trailer for Breath of the Wild 2,
Yes,
and then you talked about fighting a what?
dinosaur, a dinosaur-like beast. The trailer reminded me of that area in Skyward Sword.
Dinosaur. I'm trying to figure out what
I'll send you a picture.
thing you're talking about.
I'll send you a picture.
I don't know, but I want to see this trailer.
Well, because like I've seen the trailer and I'm confused
I'll
as to
share
what.
the trailer as well in the Discord chat.
Confused. Like the first thing that comes to my mind
That's the
is
trailer I saw. Just watched.
okay. Yeah, that's the one. Hold on a second. Let me. Pull this up on my phone, and hopefully this is not gonna play super loud.
And I'll share this clip as well that it reminds me of this area. I know it's most likely not that or anywhere close to being related, but it reminds me of this area.
I just gotta figure out what the heck you're talking about, and then I can probably explain what's actually happening.
I only said dinosaur beast because I don't know how else to describe him.
Yeah, that's what's throwing me off.
Yeah, I think I know what part of Skyward Sword you're talking about, but I don't really.
It's basically a giant scaly beast with
Okay,
a lot of teeth, no eyes that I can see.
Oh, I think I see what you mean in the trailer, and I
Yeah.
can kind of see why that's confusing, but I wouldn't call it a. I don't know what it is, but I'm not really sure how I would describe that.
Okay, I'm watching it, and I think I'm a little bit behind. So Okay, there's the stuff that we don't know what it is yet. There's Zelda.
When I first played Skyward Sword, the first game I played, I also thought they were siblings or related because they looked alike.
That would be really funny.
Come on, sis, why am I not royalty?
Really would be the question. Unless they're like,
Look at all
this
these
wouldn't make
games.
sense.
Look at all these games I am. Look at all these enemies I've defeated. How am I still a peasant to you?
Well, not a peasant. He's like the royal knight, like kind of the head knight. I did not see a big dinosaur thing.
In
Yeah, it was like
the second link that I put.
Like, I don't... Like, in the trailer, I have no idea what she could be. Maybe once I see this clip, maybe that'll...
The big tentacles or smoke or whatever that stuff was.
Oh, that stuff at the beginning. Okay, yeah. We don't really know what that is yet. Because... Okay, I kind of get it now. So in the trailer, that stuff at the beginning, a lot of people, when the trailer first dropped, were thinking it's malice, which is this yucky goop stuff you see a lot in Breath of the Wild. But when I saw it, I was immediately like, no, that's not what that is, because they're similar, but when you look at them, they're still distinctly different. And I'm like, okay, you could make the argument if this was like the early 2000s that it's the same stuff, they just animated it differently, but not today. Like the designers for the game and stuff, they were very deliberate, I'm sure. If that was supposed to be malice, it would look exactly like malice, and it doesn't. So that's why I'm saying it's not malice, which means we really don't know what it is yet, because there's nothing like that in the original Breath of the Wild, per se. So, we don't know.
While we're on the topic, what are your predictions for this second installation?
It's really hard to say, because...
Do you think there will be new places to explore, or do you think it'll be a new threat to the already created world?
Really hard to say, because the way the trailer's set up, it does look like, because you guys just watched it, so I'm going to assume you know what I'm talking about when I say this. It looks like Hyrule Castle rises up out of the ground a little bit, which implies we're still going to be in Hyrule a lot. But for me, when I see, like, in the very beginning, like, Link and Zelda traveling wherever they're going, I'm wondering if maybe we're going to see a little bit of both. Like, we are still going to be largely in Hyrule, but we're also going to see some new areas outside of Hyrule and within Hyrule. Like, the big theory is, like, underground caverns under Hyrule Castle, which
that
is
would
cool.
Make sense.
Yeah,
because in the trailer it shows them on sort of like a bridge or something at one part.
Yeah. My thing, though, is when you see who we assume is Ganon being held down by that mystical hand or whatever, the runes, like in the very beginning of the trailer, they're kind of going... Yeah, they're kind of going up and around into the sky. And, like, that's a big open area for the few seconds that we see it. Like, there's a sky and everything. So that's where I'm like, okay, I see where people are getting the underground caverns thing, but I don't think that's going to be the entirety of the new locations that we see, because Ganon has to be somewhere. Somewhere with a big open sky.
I think this Ganondorf looks a lot more cool than Twilight Princess.
Oh, keeping a lid on spoilers. Keeping a lid on spoilers so hard. Excuse me. Yeah, he looks kind of undead, which is going to be interesting. The other thing I was going to say, though, about potentially new locations. is in, I don't consider this a spoiler because there's nothing there, at the far edge of the map, like the top edge, there is this ridge you can see on the other side of a cavern, like, which is effectively the end of the map. And I tried for over an hour one time while I was playing the game to get over there, but you physically cannot get over there. Like, you paraglide over there, you run out of, even if you have your stamina maxed out like I do, you run out just before you get there. You try to climb down into the cavern, you climb down far enough, you run out of stamina and die. It's just...
The developers were smart.
Yeah, there's just no way to get over there. And so I'm kind of wondering if in the sequel we could see something actually put over there and there could be something done with that. That would be really interesting to me.
Okay, I think I'm gonna have to get a Nintendo Switch now, just so I can play Breath of the Wild.
Switch Lite is $100 cheaper. And
I did hear the Switch Lite's joysticks and controls were pretty broken or messed up.
I think all Switch controllers kind of break.
Okay, let me give you guys the rundown here. The Joy-Cons specifically.
That's probably it.
Those, let me recount this information as correctly as I can. There is a component inside the Joy-Cons to do with the joysticks on them that wears down more quickly than it should. And so that causes what's called drift. After so long of playing the Joy-Con, the control sticks, they just start kind of wigging out and they will not let you push in a certain direction, or they'll kind of drift in a direction by themselves or whatever. And yeah, it's a big problem with the Joy-Cons on the regular Switch. I believe there have been some instances reported with the Switch Lite, but generally speaking, it's the Joy-Cons on the original Switch that are the problem. I can tell you, I have a Pro controller, and I have been using the crap out of this thing for well over a year. Probably closer to 2 years, actually. Actually, yeah, closer to 2 years than 1 year. And this thing... I haven't heard reports either of the control sticks on this wearing out. So I think it's something to do with the design of the Joy-Cons. Nintendo has, in the North American and Latin regions, before all this virus stuff started happening at least, they did start replacing Joy-Cons for free because they're like, okay, this is a big issue, and they haven't really done anything else to fix it. My assumption is they don't really know what to do about it, so they're like, yeah, we're just gonna start replacing people's stuff for free.
They could just make better controllers.
Well, see, that's the thing that I'm saying, is I think because they haven't done that, is maybe they don't really know how to redesign it so that problem doesn't happen.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. I don't work at Nintendo. I don't know. But the only thing is, I know right now, because all this virus stuff has been going on, they're not doing it right now because my brother, one of his Joy-Cons, the left one, has started to wig out on him, and he tried to get it replaced, and they're like, yeah, we're not doing this right now because the world is a mess and we can't. Which is disappointing to say the least.
Yeah, but I mean, the Pro controllers seem to not break. At least from my research. I have one, but I don't normally use it just because I don't like the feel of it. I'm very picky about the texture of my controller, so I don't like that one. But I did get
That's really funny.
Well, I did get a Switch controller that looks like a GameCube controller, and I know it's probably going to start drifting soon, but I love it so much.
I haven't heard anything about the GameCube ones drifting either. It's like just the Joy-Con.
I really hope this one doesn't start because, like I said, I'm really picky about how controllers feel, and this one feels like my childhood. So it, especially whenever I do play Zelda games, because a lot of the original ones were for the GameCube, so it's like I feel right at home with it.
Yeah. Well, see, my thing, I was just gonna say, like, I said that was funny about the controllers because I'm kind of the opposite. I've been using my Pro controllers so much that like the Joy-Cons feel weird to me now. Like,
Yeah,
it's mostly with the ZR buttons on the back. They feel weird to me. Like my fingers want to slip off of them too easy or something. So I actually prefer the Pro controller.
nah, they feel too weird for me. But speaking about controllers, did you guys play Twilight Princess on the Wii?
Yes, I played both Twilight and Skyward Sword on the Wii.
So, what are your opinions about using like the Wii remote as the rather than like you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was definitely
Not
weird.
super
I
into
had
that.
the
Yeah.
Wii Motion Plus version. It was weird, definitely. I used the Wii remote and nunchuck version of the controller.
Yeah, because I hate playing like that. Like I love Skyward Sword, but so far that's like the only way I can find to play it, and I can't stand it.
It felt like a workout.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I am not super into that. That's the thing is I can do motion controls for games that are like Wii Sports where you're simulating like a real world action, but it doesn't really work the same in like a fantasy game.
The only games I will do motion stuff with is VR because it feels like I'm actually doing it in there, but with games like this, not really.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't crazy for hating that.
I just want
No.
to sit down and play, have fun, have a good time, maybe rage a little.
Because
Yeah.
I think I played Twilight Princess on 2 different devices, and for me, it's so much easier when you don't have to swing the Wii remote sword. It makes the game so much harder, and
Yes.
I can't appreciate any part of it. And that's what breaks my heart about Skyward Sword because I love the story. It's probably my top 5 favorite Zelda games. I can't stand how to play it.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem a lot of people had with Skyward Sword in particular. Is they're like, ugh, motion controls, why?
Yeah, because it took me a while, especially because I played other games before those two where I didn't have to do that. It's kind of a weird thing. You got to teach your brain how to walk with one hand and swing with the others. Like, I still can't get used to it. I think that's why I stopped playing those games like halfway through, just because I was like, I mean, I finished Twilight Princess on another device, but ugh, it's so awful to me.
Like in Breath of the Wild, there is not really a whole lot of use of motion controls. There's like a couple of puzzles that use them, and whenever you get to those, you're just like, really? I thought we were done with this. Why?
But I really hope they do bring Skyward Sword back in a format that I don't have to do that
Right.
because
Yeah, some kind of port would really.
What was your favorite Skyward Sword character?
that's so hard.
I really
I don't
like the
know.
concept of Fi, like the spirit and the Master Sword.
Yeah,
I like the concept of her.
Yeah, she was okay. I didn't super like her, but I also didn't super dislike her
I
either.
did like the Demon Lord. I could never say his name right. I always said
Demise?
no, Girahim,
Girahim.
Girahim.
That
Yeah.
guy.
Oh, what a name.
Yeah, really. I only know how to pronounce it because I've heard it in videos. Which that was actually like I could do like some theories on things that could potentially happen in Breath of the Wild 2, because like I was talking about this with my brother like not that long after the trailer originally came out, but it would get into spoilery territory for other games very fast. So
We're trying not to spoil anything in this video.
yeah,
I didn't
that's
like.
the hard part.
I definitely didn't like Tantalus, the giant octopus dreadlock monster. The abyssal leviathan from Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
I think he could have been designed a little better. I did also like the fact that you were in the sky and you traveled around on a giant bird.
Yeah, I really like that. I like the kind of relationship that they have with their birds, you know. I think that's something you don't see in a lot of Zelda games. Like, yeah, you have Epona in Ocarina of Time and in Twilight Princess, but
And
I really liked how they did that in Skyward Sword.
I did also like that they had not just the ground level places to explore, there were other floating islands to go to, and some of them had secrets and stuff.
I can't really say too much because I haven't I know what happens in Skyward Sword, but I haven't played it.
Find a Skyward Sword playthrough. I'd be very surprised if that exists.
I really
It does.
People dislike Skyward Sword. Like, it's really not a bad game. I don't get it. But also, I don't really dislike any Zelda game, so.
I guess there are playthroughs. Not completely surprised, since there are playthroughs of standalone Pokemon games like Pokemon Ranger, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, and stuff like that.
Any game that sold just relatively well, there's usually playthroughs of it, especially of a franchise like Zelda. Even though Spirit Tracks was weird, and I don't think Spirit Tracks is that popular, but it's a Zelda game, so you could probably still find a playthrough for it.
I'm surprised they haven't done a Legends of Zelda multiverse game yet, where you can see the other past Zeldas. Or Links, I mean, whatever, same diff.
Thing is, Ocarina of Time, where the timeline split happens, you don't see them per se in the traditional sense, but you can kind of you can kind of see where they come from, if that makes sense. You can, when you play the game, you can understand the timeline split.
Right.
But I do think having such a complicated timeline can maybe, make for a pretty cool game in the future if they wanted to do something with that.
That's the thing. Is when Breath of the Wild came out, there was a ton of debate based on things in the game, which of the 3 timelines is this in? Where does this fit into the timeline? And the answer to that is all 3. They designed the game specifically so that it could fit way far ahead in advance on all 3 timelines, and it still fits with the game as a whole. And so,
for all we know, they could make a game that reconnects the timelines in some way.
Okay, I've seen theory videos on that, and the problem with that is it's much easier to take a singular timeline and split it off into 3 branches. It's a lot harder to reconnect timelines in a way that makes sense. But I will say, I think that's kind of what they tried to do with Breath of the Wild. Like you can't really take those 3 timelines and condense them back into one. So I think they tried to get around that by having it fit at the end of all 3, where, okay, this game takes place so far in advance that it's at the end of everyone. That's kind of our solution. So every game, if we want to, we can just have every game after this, like it's after Breath of the Wild, so it fits in all 3, which is kind of condensing them back into one. If that makes any sense at all.
That also could beg the question on, like, whether Breath of the Wild 2 may be, like, the last one in the timeline. And maybe if they do make other ones, they could be trying to kind of filter them all back into one.
That would be really interesting.
I personally now want that to happen, even though I haven't even. But I think that would be a really kind of interesting way to kind of end. Well, I don't know if the franchise is ever going to end anytime soon because of how popular it is. But I think that would kind
You see how well Breath of the Wild sold.
Yeah. But I think that would be kind of an interesting way to end it. Because, I mean, it has to end eventually, and I don't want it to end on a game.
I don't want it to end.
Which, that's the thing, is that even if they did decide that, Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be technically the end of the timeline, is they could still go back and do, I know Metroid, in particular, another Nintendo franchise, they did this thing where they have, the mainline Metroid games, and then they have the Metroid Prime series. Prime takes place all before, I think it's the second game in the series. So they could do something like that, where the timeline is technically finished, but they go back before other games and show you, the in-between and stuff like that, or what came first.
Right.
I mean, it's just kind of exciting to see where that all goes.
Definitely.
It would be fun to work on one of the Zelda games.
I think it'd be kind of hard. I mean, Zelda games are kind of difficult to play. They're very, I don't want to say hard, but, there's always so many puzzles, and you really have to be a good problem solver to kind of get through them easily.
Yeah, and, even if you, break it down into, there's different parts of the game to work on, the visuals and the actual...
Yes, I want to work on the world design, world building.
Yeah, I mean, that's still, difficult. They have people specifically for that.
Right, they always break it up into teams.
Yeah. You don't have just a group of, 5 people working on...
I want a Legend of Zelda game where they have actual voices.
Breath of the Wild does have some voice acting.
That is so weird.
For Link and Zelda?
Well, Link doesn't... that's the thing about Link. He's a silent protagonist. He never talks. Just I mean, yeah. He's kind of like Mario. For the most part, Mario does not talk in games.
But no, that was so weird when I picked up Breath of the Wild yesterday. Me in English, I was like, what is this? It really was really weird for me.
Yeah, and
It kind of freaks me out.
I'll be honest, I've seen a lot of people, they don't really like the voice acting and stuff. Personally, I didn't think it was that bad. And every time I hear someone say oh, it was terrible, it sucked, I'm like, no, it really wasn't that bad. I think you guys are just kind of expecting a little too much from a Zelda game in that department.
I wouldn't say that it's bad, it's just weird.
Yeah, and I get that, because, Zelda's never had that before, so I get saying that it's weird. I just don't get saying that, it's hot garbage, like some people want to say about it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not bad, it's just, especially considering, we've never had that in the game, it's just, it takes a bit to get used to.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see a Legend of Zelda movie, though. Even if it's not live action, it could be there's a video, I don't know if you guys seen it on YouTube, Majora's Mask, Terrible Fate. by Ember Lab. It's a 4-minute, 40-second sort of like short film
I
that
haven't
they
seen it,
did
but
of Skull Kid, I think he's called, getting the mask. I can share it to the chat.
See, I have.
And it's really well done. I really like it, even if it doesn't have that many voice acting.
I mean,
Did a really great job. There's the
that's
link to it.
movie/video content is that usually, no offense to the professionals, but usually the fans do a much better job with it.
Look
Video
at
game
what we
movies are
did to
notoriously
Sonic.
very.
Look what we did to Sonic. We changed him.
but I do know that there is a Zelda television series. I actually,
Yeah,
a long time ago, watched. It's not amazing, but it's not the worst thing I've seen.
1986. Oh, wait, no. 97 is when it was. Actually, no, it was reading the wrong thing. It had an animated series in 89, and I didn't look up how long it lasted. I
But
did
yeah,
see clips of
that's.
it, but it did look pretty weird.
Yeah, like there was also like a really old animated series for Mario too. It's just that kind of content is
Yeah,
so
Mario
hit or
also had
miss.
a very terrible live action movie.
Oh yeah, that was bad. See, that's what
Hmm.
I'm saying. Like, it's so hit or miss. Even other like non-Nintendo video games that have gotten movies, they're very hit or miss. And I would be very hesitant about, especially because I hate how everybody like we can't do animated movies anymore. No, it's gotta be live action all the time. No, just no, please, no.
Hey, Beauty and Beast live action wasn't that bad.
Zelda, a movie of some kind, I would not want it to be live action.
Yeah,
Just
same.
no. If they especially well, if they did it animated and they did it animated in a style similar to like Breath of the Wild, I would be in support of that, at least for the visual style. Then of course you would have to worry about the story and stuff. But
I would want Pixar to work on it. No offense to Disney, but I want Pixar to work on it.
well, see, that's the thing. I don't think, I could be wrong. I don't think Disney has actually been involved with really any video game movies. Or at least if they have been very good at making it so nobody knows it was them.
Yeah, I really can't think of one.
Me
And so
neither.
I don't think Disney would touch it really. I
But
don't
I
think they
do
would be
know
into that.
that Pixar has done lots of great animated movies. They're great with animation.
Well, see, that's the thing.
Even gaming companies that are great with animation, like Blizzard Entertainment, they have a lot of great animated trailers for their games. They do really well. They could definitely compete with bigger companies like that.
Craft got a movie. It was terrible.
What?
Yeah, it
I didn't
was
even know
live
they got a
action and it
movie.
was hot garbage.
What was the movie?
I don't remember. I just know that like you don't even have to watch the whole movie. You can just see clips of it and just understand it's hot garbage.
Oh, don't even look up Mortal Kombat trailers then.
And you'll probably find it. But also you have to remember Disney and Pixar are basically the same company now. Like they still do things a little bit independently, but like they're owned by the same people now. So essentially when you say Pixar, you're essentially saying Disney. You're just saying like the side of Disney that isn't focused on princesses and stuff like that.
It's only a matter of time before Elsa and Anna become live action.
Oh
Here,
They
no.
kind of
A live action Olaf. That would be weird.
I don't know. I don't think that they're gonna touch that for a while.
Huh. Especially since Frozen 2 just recently came out.
Which don't spoil that. I still haven't seen it, and I want to. And I
Neither
want
have
to go in
I.
as I want to go in as fresh as possible, like I did with the first movie. But they kind of already did a little bit of live action Frozen in a couple different ways. So there was Once Upon a Time, Anna and Elsa are in that show, and then Frozen is on Broadway now, which is not the same thing as a live action.
Close enough.
Yeah. Not well. I mean, typically speaking, I think it's usually accepted that the Broadway shows are better than live action movies.
Most
But
definitely.
well, it's also because here's my take on it. That having not really seen a whole lot of the live ones, or not live. I mean,
I'm
the
afraid
Broadway
of being watching and being disappointed, so I never do like the SpongeBob musical.
Okay, that as a concept is just super weird to me. But no, what I was going to say is that I feel like the Broadway shows, they try harder to stick to the source material. And if they do deviate, they try to like expand on it instead of grind it into the dirt. Which is kind of what the live action movies do a lot of the time.
I think we're getting a bit off topic.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit. But yeah, Zelda. I honestly think Disney might do pretty okay with it if they or Pixar did it, because they are into like that high fantasy stuff with the Disney princess movies. But again, like they had that trend recently of making a whole bunch of live action stuff, and it really does not need to be live action.
Who the heck would even play in a Zelda movie?
That's a great question that I do not have any answers to.
Those are characters that would be hard to get actors for. I think Zelda could be pretty easy.
Possibly.
I think just in general, it'd be kind of hard to do a Legend of Zelda movie just because, Link doesn't talk. And I'm not saying it's impossible to have a mute protagonist, but...
See, that's what's weird about, like, Nintendo has actually come out, like, and said on record they want to make a Mario movie. Like, they're supposed to be working on that right now, like a new one, an animated one.
I hope it's not like the live-action one they made.
Oh my god, yeah.
Well, I'm trying to remember. If I remember correctly, the studio that's handling it, it's I don't remember what they're called. The same one that did Minions and, like, Despicable Me. Them. Thank you. I could not remember their name to save my life. They are supposed to be the ones handling it. But, like, that's the thing about a Mario movie, is Mario doesn't talk. Even in the series, when he talks a little bit, it's not like the type of thing that you would normally imagine being stretched out into a movie. And so that's kind of the big concern there, is how do you do that? How do you make a Mario movie? How do you make a movie where the main characters don't talk a lot?
It's not impossible, but I think it might be a little harder. I don't know. For me, when I play Zelda, I think a part of the reason I was so drawn into it is because when you play as Link where he doesn't talk, you kind of feel more like it's you playing the game, Does that make sense? So I'm not saying a movie wouldn't work, but I think it would, at least in my opinion, and how I view the games, it would.
I usually use my own imagination for what my character would say.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's why we have silent protagonists, is so that, like, you can get that little bit of extra immersion, because the character, is kind of left open to you, the player.
Well,
If you make it into a movie and you make them talk and you actually give them a personality, you take some of that away.
well, I think it could be possible, and it could still work really well because John Krasinski did make A Quiet Place where the characters had to be mute or quiet. So if it's written well and if they are acted well, it could work.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing for me, why I think it's interesting that Illumination is handling it, because the Minions movie, I haven't actually seen it, but I know that, like, the Minions, they speak in their made-up language, and there are, like, a lot of subtitles for that, but so they really don't talk, even though there are characters that do talk. So I'm thinking that could be a sign that maybe it'll be okay, because maybe Illumination, like maybe their experience doing the Minions with that is a step in the right direction, possibly, for a Mario movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. I
I
can't
would
really
love to see how they design some of the bad guys, even if it's just the ordinary minion you or enemy you have to defeat.
Are we talking about Zelda or Mario?
Even though some of them look ugly in the series. No offense to them.
When you said the thing about like the enemy types, are you talking about Mario enemies or Zelda enemies, or both?
But what else do you guys have for the world of Legends of Zelda or the series? Actually, have you guys seen the or read the manga?
But I don't know. I don't think they could do a Zelda movie and make it as amazing as the games, but that's just my stance on the matter.
Right.
I mean, see, that's why I'm so on the fence about the idea of that.
Oh, no.
And also, like I said earlier, the games, like video game movies, are just so hit or miss. Usually miss, that I think I'd just rather they not touch it.
Right. It's definitely interesting. If you guys could change anything about the games you've played so far, what would they be? And why?
That's a tough one.
I definitely would like Zelda to play a bigger part in more games.
Same.
Yeah, yes. I will agree with that.
If you guys played Wind Waker,
I would
think
like for them to make a game where they give more backstory to Link and his family, where he comes from, as well as Zelda.
oh, you guys would love Wind Waker. Wind Waker does a really good job about showing Link's family and Zelda and her kind of backstory and her family. It does such a good job with that. I think you guys would really like the game, and now I'm probably going to bother you guys till you play it.
You know what would sell me on playing it? Port to Switch.
You can play it on the Wii U.
I don't care because I have the 2DS, so I'll get it for that.
I don't think they ported Wind Waker to the DS.
I think it's on GameCube and Wii U.
Okay, Wii U has a better shot because I'm sure my brother has his old GameCube somewhere, but I certainly don't know where it is, and he probably doesn't either. Well, actually, wait a minute. The Wii can play GameCube games, can it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Oh,
Can
okay.
it? Ah,
Yes, it can.
wow.
Well, okay. I know there were there was like a specific model that couldn't, but like the regular Wii.
Yeah, it definitely can.
That's a thought. If I can find the game, which again my brother probably has somewhere, but God only knows where it actually is.
But I think also you can kind of look for some of the systems, because I know they like remade, or not remade, but they kind of ported a lot of the really old games to like the Wii U or the
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I looked it up. Legends of Zelda, Wind Waker, Wii U, HD. Oh, $20 at GameStop.
or if you like go to the Nintendo shop, like they have really cheap like eShop versions.
Oh yeah, that's a thought too.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it right now actually because I want to play more games, and they even have like the original Legend of Zelda for $5 on the 3DS or the Wii U. So please play them. Please play Wind Waker.
I want everything ported to the Switch. I just every time I think of a game I want to play, I'm like, I want it on Switch.
Looking at it now, I'm seeing a lot of the games have been ported to the Wii U, so that makes me think maybe they will be ported to the Switch.
The question there is like, how long is it going to take?
It might be a while, but
yeah, because we're already 3 years into the Switch, and like 3 years is a long time by itself.
Yeah, but I would definitely recommend, if you guys get the chance to play Wind Waker, it is amazing. Do it. Anyone who watches this video, go play Wind Waker. It's the best.
Right.
And I will say, if you have a Switch, or you were thinking about getting one, like Breath of the Wild, man. Breath of the Wild is worth it.
And do you have
That's good. That's good.
And if you have the Wii, get the Skyward Sword.
I really want them to move Skyward Sword onto another device. Like, I don't even care if it's the Wii U. Like, just move it somewhere I can play it.
Maybe. But, I mean, they did a remaster of Twilight Princess, so like that door is open.
Woo!
I would love for them to have a bunch of the Zelda games on PC, because with PC you can hook up most any controller.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
Problem with that is like Nintendo doesn't really they don't really touch PC games.
I mean,
They touched Skyrim. They allowed Skyrim to be ported to Switch.
Well, no. I mean the other direction. I mean, like, they typically do not put their games on PC. I actually
True.
I can't really think of any time Nintendo has put their games on a PC platform, come to think of it.
I don't think they have.
So yeah, like PC, like that's the thing, is like other games on other platforms can come to the Switch because that's usually a decision made by that game's developer, but it usually, like, the other way does not happen. Like you rarely see Nintendo games on other consoles, like actual owned by Nintendo IPs.
Oh my goodness, guys, I'm sorry, this is so random, but they have Skyward Sword on the Wii U. That means I don't have Wii controller thing. Okay, I'm saved.
Hey,
I'm sorry, I got way too excited.
no, it's okay. Like, and now we know that, so now, like, the people watching this know that too, so
Right.
people
Go
can
play
play it
Skyward
if they
Sword.
want to.
Play it the right way, y'all.
If you don't want to exercise, move to the Wii U.
I mean, I know the Wii U kind of flopped really badly, but
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you guys want Zelda games, most of them are. So, I'm sure they're cheap now.
The Wii U just went up in value. I'm kidding. Well, I mean, it kind of did, because they don't actually make Wii U's anymore. Like, the Switch came out and they're like, we're done. No more Wii U's. Just
I wish
Switch.
GameStop would keep selling older consoles.
I mean, well, that's the thing, is like the Wii U did so poorly that even though it's a little bit rarer now, is you could probably still find a Wii U like relatively cheap, especially because it's not even like that old. And like it did do so poorly.
Yeah, so
I think lifetime sales were like 300 million units, which is, when you look at Nintendo's other consoles, it's just like terrible. The only one that did worse was the Virtual Boy, which sold, I think. Oh wait, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was like 3 million for the Wii U or something. It was a 3, and it was relatively low. The Virtual Boy sold, I think,
300.
like
Virtual
uh,
Boy, the attempt at virtual reality when all you see is red.
I mean, it was really innovative at the time. It was just it was ahead of its time, really. Like the technology just wasn't there to make it a good, viable concept. Let me look that up. Actually, like let's see, Nintendo console sales. Okay, I don't need the grand total. I need like a breakdown of each console, please. Okay, here we go. As of 2018, like December 31st, 2018. Yeah, okay, the Virtual Boy sold 0.77 million. And the Wii U, okay, Wii U did a little bit better than I thought, 13.56 million. So but the Virtual Boy, like if you look at this graph, here, let me send it to the chat. You can see the Virtual Boy did absolutely awful compared to everything else on the list. There we go. Okay.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, like you see.
Yikes. I don't.
That would make sense, though. It doesn't seem like something a lot of people would be interested in.
I mean,
How many games did it even have?
well, see, that's kind of the problem. So the Wii U was dragged down. I'm going to get into this whole thing. It was dragged down because you had, if you've seen the Switch, you know how you have the option of you can switch between playing on the TV or playing handheld?
Yeah.
So the Wii U, for the people that don't know, have never owned one and probably never will, it was you had the Wii U gamepad, which kind of looked like a Switch that didn't switch, because a lot of games, you had one screen for the game on the TV, and then you had a second screen on the Wii U gamepad. But some games you could play just like on the gamepad. The only problem, you had to be within range of the Wii U for that to work. So like I could play with the Wii U in my bedroom, I could play in the living room, but if I moved too far away, it would lose the connection. So that's why the Switch is better, because that's not a thing. But so the whole thing about putting games on the Wii U, the reason that it didn't get a lot, I mean, it still got a decent amount of games to play. Like if you got a Wii U, especially for Nintendo IPs, you'd have plenty to play if you were into that. But overall, it just didn't get that many because companies were like, oh, we want to put a game on the Wii U, but we don't know what to do with that gamepad, and we don't want to look lazy for not doing anything with it. So they just didn't. And the Wii U suffered for it.
Poor Wii U.
Yeah, like, and also you have to remember the Wii was such, like, even if you just look at this chart, the Wii is the best-selling home console, and it exploded, and it was just such a departure from that.
I feel like because the Wii was such a good family game type of console.
The Wii really appealed to the casual audience a lot, because people were just so enamored when it originally came out with like, whoa, you can do motion controls, you can move out in the real world and it moves in the game. Like, oh, it was such a novel concept at the time, which is funny now considering that at this point everyone's kind of done with motion controls. Like, okay.
It wasn't ever really the best.
Yeah.
I mean, Wii Sports was amazing.
Well, yeah, because Wii Sports is Wii Sports. Like, you can't take that away from it. You never can.
But most of the other games, I just, especially like Zelda, didn't work at all.
Yeah, like when it again, like I say, when it first came out, like motion controls, like that was just like a novel concept. It was so different and it really enamored people. But now, like a few years later, okay, many years later actually, we're all just kind of over it at this point.
Wait, did the Wii really come out in 2006?
Yeah, I think
It
so.
sure did, yep. And
Oh my goodness.
and the original DS came out in 2004.
Oh
Don't-
my
don't
goodness.
we all
Okay,
feel old
no,
now?
we're stopping this. We're stopping this. I feel old.
Which I have to say, like in reference to this particular graph, I feel like the sales for the DS are inflated a little bit here because there were like 3 different versions of the DS. There was the classic DS, there was the DS Lite, and there was the DSi. I feel like they should have separated that because I feel like we're
And then
inflating
the
the sales.
DSi XL, 3DS, 3DS XL,
Well, okay, the 2DS
2DS,
and 3DS
2DS
are their
XL.
own. When you look at the thing, the 2DS and 3DS are their own category. That's fine because they play the same games. And I kind of understand, okay, the DS, like all those models play the same games. But they were kind of, at least for me, from my perspective, they were kind of pitched almost like brand new consoles. So I think they should be
definitely were.
separated.
And especially because the like original DS could play games. None of the other ones. They all felt so different to me because my sister had an original DS. I had a DS Lite, and eventually I got a DSi, and they
Really
felt very
different.
different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I played my brother's original DS, and then we both got DS Lites, and I got a DSi XL, and they're like all really different from each other. That's why I'm saying I don't like that this particular chart has them all lumped together because I think that's overinflating the DS's sales, and that's not a fair comparison.
No, I definitely agree.
Which actually,
I think the Nintendo DS Lite was the first console I ever owned.
The first one that I personally owned was my Lite, but I mean,
yeah, same here.
The first one that my family had, I think, the Super Nintendo was the first one we had.
I don't
And
even
then we
know.
had like everything in between that and the Switch.
I don't even know what my brother, like the first one he actually owned was. I know he had pretty much at least one of all of the handhelds except for like the original Game Boy. Like he had a Game Boy Color, and he had a Game Boy Advance, and he had a Game Boy Advance SP, and then the DSs, obviously. I know he had a GameCube, and I know he had an N64.
Did he have a PSP?
No. I know he had like a PlayStation and or like a PlayStation 2 and everything after that, and I don't know about like the original PlayStation. Probably. I don't know. Not a PSP though.
Yeah, I think in my house right now, like we have almost every Nintendo system. If not all of them.
Yeah, I think the only ones he didn't have were like because I think the N64 was like the third one. So like the first two, the SNES and the NES, I think are the only two he didn't have. I could be wrong. Well, that and like I said, the original Game Boy.
Yeah, we had the SNES, and just like last year we found NES at a yard sale for like $15.
I
With the
would whistle, but I can't.
What a steal.
But yeah, Nintendo has really come a long way.
That's true. That's very true. And like, so that the chart that I sent, that is as of 2018, and you can see how many sales the Switch has. I believe it's up to like 50 something million units. Hold on, let me look it up and not put my.
I know a lot of people who didn't get the Switch until recently, like didn't get my own personal Switch until I haven't had my Switch for a full year, so I know it's still people still want one and people are still getting one, and it's pretty amazing console.
I might
I'm
have to
trying
pick
to
up Animal Crossing as well.
Yeah, Animal Crossing. Don't get me started. I will talk for way too
podcast
long
for-
about Animal Crossing.
That is a podcast for another day.
Yes, it is.
I
I
can
have
imagine.
so many ideas for the newest one. It's not even funny. Oh, come on. Where are the... Okay, I don't need copies of the games. I need the Switch itself.
I could title it "My Friends Convinced Me to Play Animal Crossing."
How about
really is
I
fun.
sit and listen while two girls fangirl about Animal Crossing for hours.
Considering Animal Crossing is nowhere near my favorite game franchise, the new one is pretty great. I have a few complaints, but you guys will hear
Yeah.
about that when we really go into it.
Yeah, because I've heard other people say, and I think this is very true, that as a sequel to previous Animal Crossing games, it's not that good, but as an introduction to the series, if you've never played an Animal Crossing game, it's good. I agree with that.
I kind of do, but I'll explain my reasoning for that later.
Yeah.
Really shouldn't
Next
get into that.
week, Animal Crossing.
We've strayed from the topic too much.
Yeah. This was supposed to be about Zelda, and look where we are.
It led to us talking about other companies and Nintendo.
Zelda is Nintendo.
Yes, but Nintendo in general as a company.
Okay.
Different consoles.
It kind of just turned into a video game discussion.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
Sweet.
is not the
Video
worst thing in the
games
world.
Part 2.
Yeah, yes.
I do like that Legends of Zelda has different stories, I guess, for each game or objectives, and they don't keep the enemies or whatever the same all throughout. They do change it up.
Yeah, the basic storyline is pretty much the same, but they really add a lot, balance it out, and make it really unique.
Which okay, I finally found the sales figure I needed, so I'm just going to inject this comment here. It is the Switch has sold as of May 7th, which is very recent, 55.7 million. And I believe that includes the Switch Lite. And I feel like the Switch Lite helped a lot because it is $100 cheaper.
Wow.
The only thing is you can't play games on the TV with the Switch Lite. It's just a handheld, which is a little disappointing.
Oh yeah, I'd rather get just a regular Switch. That way I can also get some cool skins for the controller and everything else.
Well, I mean, you can. I'm pretty sure you can get skins and stuff for the Switch Lite too. It's just that's the biggest thing right there is that you can't play on the TV. It's a Switch that doesn't switch.
And no Switch.
Ironic.
Which, yeah, it's kind of funny. And actually, a lot of people were thinking they wouldn't do, they were like, oh well, what if they would probably do a quote unquote light version per se that's not as expensive, but they were like, but if they do one, why wouldn't it connect to the TV? Because a Switch that doesn't switch doesn't make sense.
Because it's not a Switch.
Yeah, it's a go. It's a on the go. That's what it is. It's a
Nintendo Go.
There's not a good name for that.
But
the Nintendo Grab and Go.
Huh.
I mean, yeah. You got the Switch and then you got the Grab and Go.
Do we have any other Zelda points that we want to tackle on now?
Not that I can think of.
Not not off the top of my head. If you got me, like shortly after the game came out, when I was obsessively playing it for 3 months, I probably could keep going for like 5 or 6 hours.
And I would ask you more questions about that, but I don't want to be spoiled on that one in particular.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's
think
just
doing another video just on Breath of the Wild when we are super that will really
yeah,
good. But
yeah,
until then.
definitely. Especially because by then, I may have actually buckled down and like finished the DLC, so I'm more familiar with the game again. Because I tried to boot it up and played a little bit while we were talking. I did not remember where any of the controls were.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it took
Imagine
me
playing
like,
it with mods.
ugh. I mean, okay, that was
Huh.
an overstatement noise. I feel like mods would make it a little too crazy. Like,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
already so much to do. I don't think it really needs any help in that department.
Well, I guess if that's all you guys have, we could end it here and have a part 2 sometime in the future.
Yeah, that'll definitely work.
Yeah, part 2 has to happen.
I'll just title this Zelda and Random Talk.
Zelda and video game
Randoms.
discussions.
Yeah,
Part 1.
video
Part
games.
2 to be TBA.
Video games part 1.
I maybe would put like Zelda in it because we do talk about Zelda a
Yeah.
lot.
Zelda and other games.
Something like that. We'll figure it out.
Well, is that all you guys got?
That's all I got.
That's all I have.
Alright, well, I guess that's the end of today's episode. Thank you all for watching, and thanks for being here with me, guys. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Please stay safe, and good luck with things reopening out there in this world. Hopefully the hair salon will open soon, because I'm turning into a rat nest. Or rat nest, why? A bird's nest. And I guess I'll see you all in the next video. Everybody, peace out.